Folks, welcome back. And I'm so excited to go ahead and talk a little bit about the rhetorical analysis that you wrote on President Reagan's Challenger speech. I thought overall, folks, we did a really, really nice job. We'd been working on how to write these well. This was our first time trying to figure out how to write them quickly. And certainly we tried to structure it with the idea of doing it in 40 minutes, then having a chance to go back and finalize and flesh some things out. And for the most part, I think we are absolutely on the right track. So I wanted to take just a few moments to discuss some of the top half essays versus the bottom half essays, what types of things we should be thinking about to push our own writing. And we're going to be doing that just by looking at examples from your own peers. Now, there were a lot of really, really good writings. And so I have a feeling that there are some people who, in fact, I know there are some people who received top half scores, a 130 or even a 131, where I maybe didn't use a paragraph or a thesis statement or something like that of theirs. Please don't read into that. I think those scores should help guide us a little bit. I definitely spend some time looking over that rubric and paying close attention to where we are at after having 40 minutes and then an additional 30 to go back and keep building. But I want to talk a little bit about the speech on a broad scale, and then we'll go ahead and we'll break down kind of three different things. One, the claims, what made for some of the good claims that we saw. I grabbed three of them. I also want to talk about the broad openings, how different writers opened up this particular essay with 2-3 sentences and then got to Reagan in this particular unique rhetorical situation. And then after that, we'll take a look at some sample paragraphs. Now, because this document is available to you, we're not necessarily going to read through every single paragraph, but I grabbed 4 of them for you. We'll take a close look at maybe 1 or 2 of them, and then you can navigate those extras kind of on your own. But let's go ahead and take a look here at Reagan's Challenger speech and what went well here. So when we're thinking about kind of the top half essays versus the bottom half essays, these kind of would be the big 3. One, people who ended up with top half essays, for the most part, really focused on the unique rhetorical situation. He has the nation's attention. It was supposed to be a State of the Union address, and instead, it turns into this address. I think that's a really interesting rhetorical situation to be in because he's speaking to a broad American audience here. He also doesn't have a lot of time to prep for this. You have to imagine that the White House had to be pretty chaotic as he and his staff writers were crafting the speech. Although I don't know if that's necessarily something that we would spend a lot of time writing on. But certainly some people did mention that unique rhetorical situation for this particular text. I think these other 2 bullet points are probably the most important. The layered audience. I think the layered audience really plays into the purpose here. So a lot of people talk about the families of those who were lost as being part of the audience. And certainly he does address them, but he is also thinking about the broader American audience here. He talks a lot about America, American ideals, American institutions, the space program at large. And so it's about way more than the families. This was not a private meeting just with the families. And so while he does address them, really the second half of the speech is really to America as a whole. The first half, he speaks to the families, he speaks to the children watching, but really it's a broader American audience, and his argument, his deeper purpose is very much connected there. This is really the key for a top half essay, this final one, to be able to identify and then connect your reasoning or your commentary to that deeper purpose. On the surface, this is a speech about comfort and it's about honor. But if we stop there, it's really hard to turn it into a top half essay. Now, those are true. It is to comfort and it's to honor. But there is also an argument here. Every single text that you're asked to read is an argument. What is his argument here? He's not arguing for comfort. He's not really arguing we should honor the people lost. Those are kind of givens. And I'm not trying to kind of cast away the importance of the moment, but like those are kind of givens. He's making a deeper argument here. And that's what we have to identify if we are going to have a top half essay. This needs to come through in our claims. It needs to come through in our opening hook. It needs to come through in our commentary, in our reasoning. And that's the argument about the American way of exploration, pioneering, pushing boundaries, moving the space program forward, thinking about this not as a moment of failure, but as a horrific consequence in the pursuit of greatness. That's what the speech becomes in the second half. It's very much moving away from comfort and instead pushing towards honor in a different way. The value in exploration and pioneering and why we need those things. So this is really going to be kind of that key here that I want to draw your attention to. So as we think a little bit about looking at our thesis statements, looking at, or excuse me, our claims, I guess I should say, as we think about our claims, as we think about our broad openings, as we think about the body paragraphs, boom, this is absolutely going to be your key here, is this deeper purpose. If we don't identify that deeper level, we're going to really struggle to get to the top half. This is a great reminder. This is both a reading and a writing test. This is the reading portion. We've got to figure out that deeper purpose. Okay, let's take a look at 3 claims that your peers came up with. We had talked about using the strategies plus strong verb plus purpose approach. I don't think you necessarily had to do that. There were definitely some thesis statements that didn't go in this exact order, but because we had talked about that, I wanted to grab 3 that did follow it. Again, I think as long as you have these 3 components, the order is not nearly as important. But you'll notice here that we have strategies, strong verbs, and then purpose. What was it that Reagan really wanted to chase after here? And remember that this purpose is what we just talked about. Really, we shouldn't just say purpose, but we should also say this is our deeper purpose. If we stop at the idea of he's just trying to honor the victims, or he's trying to provide comfort, we're missing that deeper purpose, that deeper argument here. Remember, everything is an argument. What's the real argument he's making for this audience? Because it's broader. It's broader than just the family. So we know that it has to be an argument for more than just the families. Okay, so let's check out these 3 thesis statements. Okay, 1, by recognizing space researchers as modern pioneers and noting modern American ideals, Ronald Reagan effectively conveys to the American people that purpose. They must be brave in the face of tragedy, honoring those who are lost, and continuing to pioneer space research. Okay, cool. What I love about this is really, we've got strategy, strong verbs, purpose. Those are all there. We can also break this down a little bit too, just into the idea of like, here's what Reagan does. And then the second half being more of why he does it. So if you ever kind of forget the order of claims or strategies, strong verbs, and purpose, you can always think in terms of what and why. What did he do? What strategies? So maybe let's make that what strategies he utilizes. And then why did he do that? Like, what was his true purpose here? Well, at the end of the day, what does he want to accomplish for this American audience? Which I love that this writer put right in here. What was he trying to do? Well, he was trying to make an argument about being brave in the face of tragedy and continuing that pioneer space research, right? I think that's a great example of kind of a what and a why. We've got the strategies. Ronald Reagan conveys, strong verb, and then that purpose. We see the what and the why here in other sections as well. Here, by reassuring the American people that the spirit of exploration is alive and well and inspiring the people to continue the quest for truth. This is kind of big picture ideas, big picture strategies that he does. Why does he do this? convey that bravery is the single most important antidote to tragedy. We've got our what, and we once again have our why, kind of that deeper purpose here. And of course, we get that pattern again down here with our what and our why. By appealing to his multi-layered generational audience and by honoring those who perished in the pernicious accident, Reagan inspires, strong verb, his country to mourn their losses, but deeper purpose, to continue their great work and strive for new knowledge in space exploration. I love this one just because I think this is a great example of like deeper purpose is very clearly established here. I think that absolutely sets your reader up to say this is probably going to be a top half essay, or at least it's going to be in the running for it. So, strategy, strong verb, purpose, what and why, however you want to think about it. But I thought these were three really interesting thesis statements, especially considering the timed writing. Now, again, could you play with the order? Absolutely. I hope I'm not misremembering. I think it was Leah, who had like multiple lines of a thesis statement, which totally worked. If I'm misremembering, then I apologize. So it doesn't always have to look like this. But if we look at that rubric, it does say that we have to establish strategies and purpose. Great way to do it, especially in a timed writing when we don't have a lot of time. What did Reagan do? Why did he do it? What are those strategies? Why did he do it? And including some strong verbs is always great. And we've got that strong verb here that kind of links them. I also highlighted the strong verbs that happened early on, but ultimately, what does Reagan do? He conveys, he inspires. Ultimately, that's what's linking these. All right. So now let's think about kind of how you might open up this essay. Now that we've really driven home this deeper purpose, we know that we want to open up with 1, 2, maybe 3 sentences at most about kind of this broader argument that he's making. You'll notice that as we look at these, Reagan doesn't even get mentioned. Not until we start working our way into this particular text. But check out these 3 openings that we have. Pause the video for a quick moment and take a quick look, and then we'll talk about them. Okay, now that you've paused the video and had a chance to read through those, notice Reagan only appears when we start to go ahead and kind of transition. So we had thought a little bit about the idea of, actually, it doesn't let me do an upside down triangle, so I won't do that. But we had talked about this idea of having an upside down triangle with our thesis literally and symbolically, our claim literally and symbolically being the point. But thinking a little bit about having a broad opening. Sorry, let me get my color coding right. I think we've done it in green. Our broad opening, having our lead in, and then, of course, literally and symbolically getting to our thesis here at the end. And I love the broad openings that we have here because each of these is so incredibly focused on exploration. We know that's part of the deeper purpose. Failure, risk, miscalculations that can end in tragedy. These are all related to that deeper purpose. And then we transition into this particular text. We see the same thing down here, an opening about the world constantly innovating and advancing, but that risks must be taken. There are dangers. All of these are connected to that deeper purpose here, but don't actually mention Reagan quite yet. So it's a little bit of a longer, broad opening, a little bit risky with timed writing. But I loved this thread that they pulled here. These risks come with unknowns and casualties. It's because of these risks that just got mentioned by the writer that President Ronald Reagan, boom, like I love that thread that got pulled here. These risks, it's because of these risks. Like awesome job pulling a thread here. I thought that was super cool. Great moment for that there. And we see a similar pattern here in this last one. In times of grief, little that we can do, the pain that plagues the soul. But loss doesn't mean defeat. This is the key. It's not just about grief. What I love that this writer did is they didn't open with the idea of grief. They opened with the idea that grief doesn't mean defeat. We don't stop out of fear. That's so connected to what Reagan says. And then, boom, we've got that lead in and we're into the rest of the introduction. I loved all three of these. I thought they were great examples of those types of openings. And there were so many of these, but I thought folks did a really nice job. Okay, last but not least then, we have our body paragraphs. I have 4 of these for you to take a look at. Now remember, these were timed writings. These are not going to necessarily be, they're not necessarily going to be the best paragraphs that we've ever written. We didn't have the time or the structure to do that. But I really loved the different ways in which people either linked opportunities, linked different moments like what we saw here, or in future examples where we see maybe one particular moment focused on. But you'll notice that those pieces of evidence are really kind of small here. The core in these paragraphs, as you read through them, is really going to be focused on that deeper purpose and why Reagan did what he did. Notice how much is committed here to the why, to the reasoning, the commentary. Ay, ay, ay. Notice how much is committed to the commentary, reasoning, whatever it is that we want to call it. But really, it's the why Reagan did this. Clear connections. His deep purpose for this audience. That's that dominating color here, more than anything else as we think about that 2-tier structure. You'll see that actually in all of these body paragraphs. The great emphasis on that deeper purpose. So as you look at all of these, as you take the time to scroll through, identify the moments, which are going to be commentary and reasoning, which focus on Reagan's deeper purpose. About the value in exploration, pioneering, like space program at large, all of those, right? These aren't focused just on the crew and comforting the families. That's part of it, but that's not that deeper purpose. So even here, if you were to pause the video and take a close look here, where they look at connecting the Challenger crew with Sir Francis Drake, really, the why is still our dominant color here. In speaking about, it's not failure, it's an act of bravery. The crash isn't a failure. Their lives are complete because they were committed to exploration. Like all of this, again, really becomes that really awesome reasoning that we want to be focusing on. And it's all so incredibly connected to Reagan's deeper purpose. As we take a look at the third, again, I encourage you to pause and actually give these full read-throughs. Continue to take a quick look at not only the evidence that gets used, but the reasoning that follows. That's our main focus. And we see that again in body paragraph number 4. Now, again, these were 4 really solid paragraphs. There were way more than that available in class. But I do hope that having the opportunity to look through these and pause the video and read through them really drives home the emphasis, the continued emphasis on Reagan's deeper purpose. You'll also find in these some really interesting writing moves, things that help these writers either push towards or achieve that sophistication point. Part of that sophistication point comes with understanding that deeper purpose, and part of it too is the interesting writing moves. So check out how these different writers did that. Again, what I encourage you to do is, whether it's through this video or through me just uploading this particular document, taking the time to read through those 4 body paragraphs. No, it's not going in the gradebook, but it will save you more time in the long run as you continue to work on kind of honing your craft of rhetorical analysis and reminding ourselves that this is both a reading and a writing test. Folks, thanks so much for your hard work. After you've reviewed this video and you've reviewed the feedback on your own essay, if you have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, as I would love to sit down and work through that with you. Folks, thanks again for your hard work, and we'll continue working on this challenging but intriguing task of rhetorical analysis.